And with that, we come to the end of another year. I don't feel as though this year was as productive as last year. I guess that just goes to show how busy things have gotten. But anyways, let's take a look in this video at the best and worst kits that I built during 2022. I'm Matt, this is Model Minute, and welcome back to the workbench. So all of the kits featured in this video today will be of models that I have built this year, not necessarily kits that have come out this year or been released or been announced, purely kits that I have built personally. And the ranking criteria goes along the lines of how good the kit actually is. So that's looking at the moulding, the decals and the instructions. If it's an old kit in a new box, that will be taken into account as well. I also think about how the kit was to build, whether the parts fit well together, if there were any particular skills or techniques that I had to use in order to complete it, and if there were any issues with the kit that needed fixing. And finally, the last criteria is what it looks like at the end and how much enjoyment I got out of it. Because let's face it, if we don't enjoy building a kit, it wasn't a particularly good kit. And with that out of the way, let's get straight into it. So coming in with the worst kit that I built this year. In the number 10 slot is the Revell TA152 H in 1/72nd scale. So I know some of you are probably going to go, but Matt, that's an old 1960s frog tooling. You can't expect it to be a good kit. And I'm like, yeah, it isn't a good kit. But the fact that Revell is still selling this as part of their main range and happy to pass it off as a new model rather than an old one means that it's going to take the bottom slot in this ranking. But that's not just the only reason. The kit in itself is pretty bad. The details are poor, the fit is okay but a little bit questionable in a few places, but I did notice one big error, which is if you follow the instructions you'll actually glue the propeller on backwards. I know that when I built this I did make a few little errors with the paintwork, particularly at the wing roots. It should be camouflaged right up to the side of the plane, so that's on me. And it was good practice for using an airbrush. But ultimately the only real thing that was good about this kit were the transfers, and even then I still had a few issues with them. Particularly not really conforming around the band at the tail and it being a little bit too small. But anyways, that's enough about that one. Let's move on to position number 9. And in the 9th slot is the Academy F104G Starfighter. Now this kit takes its position sort of along the same vein as the Revell one. It's an older tooling. The tooling is not the best. The details are quite soft. The internal details are massively lacking. The molded pilot was a bit of a joke. And those Academy transfers are less than ideal, leaving some silvering underneath the film. I think though, as a model it looks quite good, and this was one of the earlier models that I airbrushed this year, and the more complicated camouflage paint scheme was quite interesting to do. However, it has been highlighted to me that apparently it's the incorrect paint scheme for the particular version I've done here, which is interesting because that's what the instructions told me to do. Anyways, with that, let's move on to position number 8. So this model pretty much takes this position purely due to the quality of the kit. I actually had quite a lot of fun building this one because I built this one for me. It's the PM Model C Fury in 1/72nd scale. So this was a model which I just picked up from the shop, bought some enamel paints from the Model Master range and just wanted to have a go at. I didn't worry too much about filling all of those gaps or worrying too much about finishing this to a massively high standard. But for a couple of reasons, particularly the less than perfect mold quality, those transfers being okay but not the best in the world, and the instructions having quite a few errors in them, sadly it can't take a higher slot. Personally though, I'm glad that I did it and I had a good time building it. Coming in at number 7 is the Hobby 2000 Hurricane Mk1 in 1/72nd scale. So this is actually a Hasegawa rebox, and at first look it looks to be quite a good model, but if you watch my build video on this you'll see that I had a number of problems. Particularly the kit is tooled to be a later Mark II version and you have to make alterations to make it a Mark I, which is less than ideal. The transfers are by cartograph and are lovely, however the designers of the transfers have made a bit of an error on the particular one that I did, whereby you can't actually apply the nose decals correctly because they're wrong. They should be mirrored and instead they are duplicates. Additionally, and this is kind of my fault, I lost a pitot tube which I had to 3D print a replacement for, so that's kind of on me. The only real good thing about this was the use of those SMS paints, and it was my first time using acrylic lacquers and I really enjoyed them. But if I'm being honest, this kit was not the most enjoyable of the kits that I've built this year, and sadly that's why it takes number 7 slot. Moving on though, number 6 is the Revell F117A Nighthawk in 1/72 scale. This one's in this position purely because it's a simple, quick kit to build, and I pretty much use spray cans on it. Yes, it's an older tooling and it's lacking in detail and a little bit clunky in places, but on the whole it's not too bad to build. It is a little bit expensive for what it is, retailing for I believe it was £20 at the time I made the video, and to be honest it's probably worth about half of that. But if you're looking for a fairly simple snap kit to do to get some experience, this would be perfect for you. Moving on then to position number 5, we're halfway through the list. I have selected the Airfix Jet Provost, which I did as a special challenge video. Some of the kits that I've featured in this list haven't yet been released as videos, so make sure you are subscribed so that you don't miss them when they go live. But this one I did as a special challenge video, where I painted it exclusively using nail polish. To that end, it hasn't necessarily got the best finish, but I think you'll agree that it is surprisingly good. The main issue I had with this kit was that it was missing parts, in the sense that there was short shot moulding. So the ejector seats and the wings were missing parts of plastic which should have been there, and I contacted Airfix and they said they didn't have any spares they could send me. Seems to me like the quality control on this particular kit has been a little bit low, but for my challenge video it didn't really matter because I was basically slapping some nail polish on there anyway. Anyways, moving on to position number 4 is the Airfix Hawker Demon. So this is a vintage classic kit, and you might think to yourself, hang on Matt, you had a Revell TA152 as the worst kit in the range, which was like the 60s, and now this is like a, what, 60s, 50s tooling, and it's higher up, so how come? And the main reason is because Airfix don't lie to you about the tooling date. They tell you on the box of this range how old the tooling is, so you go into this kit knowing what to expect. And to be brutally honest, the tooling is actually not too bad. Yeah, there were a few bits of flash and a few little bits which had broken on the sprue, but they were easily repaired. And if I'm being honest, the details in this kit are better than the Revell TA152 we looked at earlier. I did quite enjoy building this one, and it was fairly easy to do with those various silver paints. But I just couldn't bring myself to do the rigging, as it's just something I don't enjoy at the moment. And with that, I think it's time to move on. So before we get into the top 3 this year, I just want to make an honourable mention. And this is for my Airfix Spitfire, which I did in Air Racer colours with a Models for Heroes logo on it. If you guys don't know what Models for Heroes are, they are a charity which supports serving and veteran members of the armed forces through using modelling as a therapy. You can donate to them directly, or you can send them Airfix flying hours, which they will then redeem for kits and send out to their supported people. I'll drop a link under the video to their website, so if you would like to donate some flying hours or a couple of kits to them, you will know where to do it. So anyways, moving on, we are now at position number 3, and this slot is taken by the Airfix FW190A8, which is a starter set, but I built it purely to review a new airbrush. And the irony is that although I did it to review an airbrush, it ended up being one of the best looking models I think I've done this year. Granted, the paint scheme wasn't massively complicated, but I'm quite happy with that mottling on the tail. The camouflage scheme was painted freehand, and on the whole it looks like a very neat build. Yes, there are a few gaps and things which I didn't bother addressing because at the end of the day I was just testing out an airbrush, but that being said, it does look quite good sitting on my shelf, and I'm pretty pleased with it. But anyways, let's move on to position number 2. So the silver position is taken by the Beacon Models BF109 in 1/144th scale. So as a little caveat, this was a pre-production prototype sample, and it did have a slight moulding issue where the moulds were unaligned. However, I think you'll agree that it does look very good. The actual production samples have had this error addressed and fixed, and I have been assured by Beacon Models that my actual production versions should be coming to me soon. So I'm looking forward to them. What I really enjoyed about this kit though was the level of detail for such a small scale. It was relatively easy to construct, and the fact that Beacon Models are embracing the 3D printing community. So everything else on this little diorama base was 3D printed, including the pilot and the Kugelwagen, which are also Beacon Models designs. But I think now it's time to move on to the model which takes top slot, and it was sort of inspired off the back of the number 2 slot to do a little diorama with it. So up in number 1, the best kit that I feel I built this year was the Master Box 1/35th Camel and Rider diorama. So I built this as part of a recent group build on my Discord server, which was called War in the Desert, and I didn't really know what I was going to do, and I had a couple of free days. So I pulled this out of the stash and built it, and to be honest, I've not really done figures before. I've certainly never painted animals. The only real experience I have of figure painting is small scale figures for aircraft and model trains. So doing something larger like this was a bit of a challenge for me. Yes, I did have a few little bits of trouble with the construction of the camel, particularly having to use filler around the sort of seat that goes on the back of the animal. And there are a few little areas which now looking back I feel like I could improve on, but to be honest, I am so happy with how this one turned out. I feel as though it pushed my skills to the limit and forced me out of my comfort zone. And on the whole, I enjoyed it very much. And with that, I think it's time to wrap this video up here. What did you think of my builds this year? Let me know down in the comments. And if you enjoyed this one, dropping a like would be greatly appreciated. As always, a quick shout out to my channel members and patrons for the extra support they give the channel. And I'm very fortunate that we have been joined by quite a few new members. And apologies if I butcher names. They are Marcus, Mk1, Gurovich, Marcel, RCAF Aussie, Epic Gamer WMP, Wayne Welly, Paul T, Stannis Models, Foxy Toxic, Boo, Bagel Pilot, Viper21, Lone654, Chris Riffraff206, Oscar and Enrique, who all join as skill level 2 channel members here on YouTube. And if you'd like to find out how you can get involved and what a patron or channel membership means, take a look at the links in the description. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank everyone for the massive support that I've received over the last 12 months. And I'm wishing you all a very happy new year. So thanks for watching this one, and I'll see you on the workbench again soon.